For more on this, I'm joined from Ramallah by Dr. Sabri Saidam, Deputy Secretary General of Fatah Central Committee. Doctor, thank you for joining us so much today.
Thank you.
Dr. Saidam, Israel just announced that it's agreed to a limited reopening of Gaza's Rafah border crossing, saying it would only allow pedestrians to travel through the crossing between Gaza and Egypt. What does this pedestrian-only reopening mean, and how important is this considering the crossing has been closed since May 2024?
Well, it's good to be with you. First of all, let me say that this is a step in the right direction, although it remains ambiguous for many Palestinians. Remember, the decision was taken maybe late last night. It was announced this morning. It's marred with ambiguity. There's no clarity on the matter. And as you know, Israel is keen to make sure that the proportion of Palestinians leaving the Gaza Strip is higher than that coming back. So this pedestrian approach, and there seems to be also an Israeli checkpoint somewhere that's going to check Palestinians coming into Gaza, are going to be impediments vis-a-vis Palestinians coming back, which is extremely worrying and needs to be cleared with many explanations from the Israeli side. So we would like to see the international community, mainly the Americans now, ask Israel as to how opening a crossing in both directions would mean that lesser people coming in than those coming out. Israel is fixated definitely on the idea of expelling as many Palestinians as it could.
Exactly. And as you said, this remains ambiguous. So in your view and from what you know, what exactly does this limited reopening mean in practice? Do you have any more details?
Well, as I said, you know, the flow of people is not in any way equal. Moreover, that means no goods will be coming in, which is most disturbing, given the fact that Israel has been propagating over the last few weeks that it has allowed sufficient number of food lorries to come in, which is not really the case. Moreover, there's no people with ambulances, so people with desperate need for medical attention will not be receiving that. Moreover, any construction material will not be coming in so far. So I think we are caught in a very difficult situation. Israel has announced about an hour ago that it has retrieved the corpse of the last Israeli detainee, which means that it has completed the mission it desired to complete. So there's no need for any hurdles on the way, any obstacles that Israel is certainly implementing as we speak.
Exactly. And even though this remains, a lot of details still need to be sorted out, but how significant do you think this reopening is in the context of the recent ceasefire and negotiations over Gaza's reconstruction?
Well, it's very significant if it goes the way we desired it to go. Discussions with the American administration and its interlocutors was clear that Israel will open the crossing both ways, that there will be a free flow of needs, be them food or reconstruction material. Now we seem to be having hurdles and obstacles, which means and confirms that Israel wants Gaza, wants the cake and have it all without any single Palestinian remaining. So I would say such a process will certainly impede the flow. It looks like also this is a reflection of the Israeli discontent with the pressure that the Americans seem to have slightly put on Israel to open the crossing. I say slightly because there doesn't seem to be a serious commitment on the part of Israel to apply any of the 20 points that then turned the Security Council decision were passed a few months now, and there's no clear Israeli indicative of any move in the right direction. If anything, Israel is impeding the process and certainly delaying matters as we speak.
Yes, because the Israeli government said that it made this opening conditional on Hamas making every effort, they say, to return the body of the last hostage. That would be police officer Sergeant Ran Vili. So what do we know about Ran Vili's whereabouts? And is Hamas making every effort possible to return the body of the last hostage?
Well, the body of the last hostage, as I said an hour ago, was announced to have been retrieved. So there's no many there aren't any excuses, rather, for this delay whatsoever. Moreover, Israel has not in any way implemented phase one. If anything, no Palestinian believes that there was any implementation of phase one. Bombardment continued to take place. Israel was annexing more land of the Gaza Strip. It was moving the yellow line, as it were. It was not allowing any flow of reconstruction material. It was not allowing the sick and needy to leave the Gaza Strip, has not opened the Rafah crossing, many things that Israel was not in any way keen to implement. Moreover, the situation of, in the West Bank rather, remains very complicated and very hairy. Israel is allowing more and more settlement activities to take place. Moreover, it's allowing settlers not only to arm, but also to take up these arms against Palestinians and driving Palestinians from their localities. So that confirms what we have been saying day in and day out, that Israel is on for one objective only, driving Palestinians out in the West Bank and Gaza for sure.
And well, now that the Israeli condition has been met, that would be the return of the body of the last hostage. What are you hopeful for a full opening of the Rafah crossing, or do you have an expected timeline for fully reopening this crossing?
As far as the American administration has said quite recently, Rafah crossing should have been open maybe yesterday, maybe this morning, but there seem to be other ideas that Israel has. Number one is to erect an additional checkpoint to attend to security matters, as it said. Moreover, walking as pedestrians coming in and out of Gaza is another impeding point. And there does not seem to be any clarity on the flow of goods, as I said, or reconstruction material. So as we speak, things are getting more and more complicated, and Israel is adding layers after layers of security, which would certainly destroy the entire process and may push the scene towards a resumption of attacks and, war, as it were.
And the latest reports on the ground in Gaza are that the rain, the harsh winter, and malnutrition are actually claiming more and more lives in Gaza as we speak. So what do local humanitarian workers on the ground, for example, report about the current situation while this crossing has remained closed? And how much has this actually made the conditions worse?
Definitely, I agree with you. This has made the conditions much worse. Let's take the, UNRWA, for example. It had said that Gaza has become the most dangerous place on earth, not only for journalists, but also for humanitarian workers. Take also into consideration the complaint or the sustained complaint by other agencies that there's no food coming, enough food rather, coming into Gaza, and there's stacks and stacks of food on the other side, while lorries await entry into Gaza. So it looks like, things are getting more and more complicated. And obviously, Israel is keen to push the Palestinians into the brink of attacking Israel somehow, so that it uses that again as an excuse to wage yet another war, or rather resume the old war, but this time knowing that it has no hostages in, so it will destroy Gaza in its entirety. Gaza has been destroyed. 90% of it, as you know, has been flattened. There's not been any life, as it were, in Gaza. And things are, as I said, are getting more and more complicated.
And as you said, it still remains unclear whether the reopening, or limited one, would, for example, allow medical patients, I imagine there's many, to leave Gaza for treatment in Egypt or other neighboring countries. So how do you respond to criticism that this limited opening might actually still restrict critical, much needed critical aid and or civilian travel that is actually considered a lifeline for Gazans?
I would say, that's absolutely true. What is happening is impeding the movement of people. It is affecting the livelihood of those that are standing there awaiting their turn for treatment, and is certainly delaying matters, leading to the scenes that came out of Gaza. Under severe and atrocious weather conditions, things were getting worse and worse for Gazans. So I totally agree that Israel is on for making the lives of Palestinians more and more horrible and more horrid for the purpose of pushing Palestinians out. The only scene that will make Netanyahu happy is to see as many Palestinians as he could leave Gaza, and as he expects, wants to see a mass exodus of Palestinians departing Palestine. I think that's in his wildest dream, but so far is creating and setting the scene and is creating the obstacles needed to achieve that.
Now, Dr. Saidam, on to another topic here. Donald Trump signed his Gaza Board of Peace. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has agreed to join. So how will Israel's participation, in your eyes, shape the board's agenda on Gaza? Meaning, for example, reconstruction, security, and for long-term peace objectives?
First of all, let me remind you that we have welcomed, as the PLO and Fatah, we have welcomed any step that leads towards saving the blood of our people and saving Gaza in its entirety and leading towards reconstruction and consolidation of the existence of our people there. But the mere fact that Netanyahu sits on the board is actually laughable. This is a joke. This is a man who has an arrest warrant issued against his name and against him and his ex-defense minister for crimes against humanity. It was issued by the International Criminal Court. So how on earth would you invite somebody with blood on his hands to be sitting at a so-called peace board? It's rather peculiar, and also other leaders would find it difficult, especially those who acknowledge the decisions by the International Criminal Court and won't allow Netanyahu to even fly over their skies, to be sharing seats with him and sitting at the same podium, designing the future of Gazans and designing the future of Palestinians. This is rather bizarre and totally unexpected and totally unacceptable to many Palestinians. And I think Israel and the American administrations would have a lot of questions to answer. If anything, there should have been the Palestinians themselves sitting there and not Netanyahu.
Exactly. And actually, to what extent might Netanyahu's involvement affect the board's legitimacy with Arab states and other international actors, for instance, European countries who have decided not to join?
Well, definitely so. They have not joined maybe over Greenland dispute, but also over the principle that a man who has, as I said, blood on his hands being seated next to them is rather bizarre, as I said. So I think they've taken a wise decision. It will make, as I said, the position of other leaders rather awkward to be sharing the same platform with him. I think Netanyahu will make certain that he complicates things, that he drives Palestinians out, that he drives the hell out of Palestinians, and also make life difficult vis-a-vis reconstruction and what have you. Maybe it is the project of the Riviera or whatever names they have called the place would be implemented, and Netanyahu is there to make that happen. Let's hope the American administration would conclude at the end that Netanyahu is not the right recipe for peace, and that, if anything, there should have been a change of leadership in Israel and maybe in America at a later stage for peace to prevail. But remember, Trump was the man who spoke earlier about prosperity, about New Middle East, about peace and what have you. Where would that happen when Netanyahu is still in the scene? And where would it happen when Netanyahu is still sharing or intending to share platform with the leaders, at least of a freer world, that speak their mind and should not agree to a criminal being seated next to them?
And you mentioned a Palestinian voice in this board here. The board does include several Arab governments, but no elected Palestinian representation. So how meaningful can these Arab voices on the board speak for Gazans, if Gazans and Palestinians themselves don't have a direct seat at the table here?
Well, let me say that we will not allow Trump to strike a chord between the Palestinian leadership and the Arab leaders. These are our brothers, definitely. They will certainly echo what we want to say, but it's more meaningful, I agree with you, if Palestinians were sitting there at the board. So that is going to create difficulty, as it were, and it will be a non-starter. Let's hope that the American administration, with the help of our brothers, as I said, would certainly push for a Palestinian presence and reconsider the very existence of Netanyahu on the same platform.
And speaking of the same platform here, Israel did have initial concerns of the board's composition, for instance, the participation of Turkey and Qatar. So how will these competing diplomatic views perhaps affect the board's effectiveness here? Or might this Gaza board actually force Israel, Turkey, and Qatar, for example, to actually coordinate efforts? Could this actually be a good thing?
Well, this is what the American administration wanted. Moreover, Turkey and Qatar were the ones behind engineering the scene, as it were. The 20 points of Trump, the Security Council, the cessation of hostilities, the exchange of detainees, it all happened under the auspices of the efforts that were exercised by Turkey and Qatar. So come now and say we don't want them is rather ambiguous. I think Israel is playing games. Israel would need Qatar and Turkey for its own good, and would need the Qatar and Turkey for its own mediation of efforts that it needs so desperately. So I would say, there is some sort of game playing, as it were.
And Dr. Saidam, some analysts, also countries, have expressed this concern. For example, France. They say the board could rival or sideline the United Nations and their mission. Is this a valid concern, or is an extra hand actually in peace building actually helpful here?
Well, I think, the composition of the board, inviting everyone, right, left, and center, inclusive of Netanyahu, which I said rather bizarrish, and also asking people to pay $1 billion and getting members to commit to financial help for the reconstruction of Gaza was certainly a move that actually threw some doubt into the entire scene. And France reflected the entire mood of Europe that Trump is on to replace the UN. But now I have to say that having seen that many countries have not joined the board, inclusive of some Arab countries, by the way, I would say his efforts have failed. The UN will remain the United Nations. It will remain representing all people of the world. And no matter what Trump does, he will not succeed in replacing the UN. Moreover, UNRWA specifically has been in the scene for the last 80 years almost, or maybe less, but certainly knows the ins and outs of Palestinian lives. No matter what Trump tries to do, no matter what Netanyahu tries to do, this piece of board will certainly not replace the UN, for sure.
Okay, and now let's turn to another topic here. We're going to talk about Trump and Jared Kushner's Gaza Reconstruction real estate mega project master plan. This was unveiled at Davos, including, for example, the proposal for up to 180 skyscrapers in Gaza. So what is your initial assessment of this plan?
I mean, forget about what I want to say. Let's take into consideration what others have said. Those who attended Davos, they said this is more of a dream that's not going to be realized. This is more of a plan that is more of a, just a story and a dream story that Trump wants to tell the world. I think, given the time span that this initiative or the Board of Peace and what have you was made to last for, is not going to be sufficient to allow such a thing to happen. Moreover, this is an implementation of a Security Council decision, remember, that would last until 2027, which means that Trump would not be in the scene. Moreover, the resolution itself bears the name of Trump. When Trump is gone, would this ever survive? I doubt it. America is already rejecting Trump. Things are difficult, quite challenging in different states as we speak, and maybe this will escalate, and this matter remains to be seen. So this is more of a dream. We would love to be, as Palestinians, enjoying the existence of the development of the entirety of Palestine, of making sure Palestinians stay on their land. But I think we'd have to do this with a great deal of realism and also a great deal of commitment and a great deal of, a very Palestinian identity to be there to play a major role in doing that. Exporting dreams, implementing them on territory that does not belong to you will not make the territory yours in any way, no matter what you do.
And exactly, Dr. Saidam, and for our final question here, and continuing on what you've been mentioning about the timeline and concerns on the timing of this plan, because Kushner's plan actually promises a rapid redevelopment of Gaza, he says. But the timeline he suggests, as you also said, seems far shorter than what the United Nations and Palestinian authorities actually expect. So realistically, let's get a bit more into this. Do you think it will take, how much time do you think it will take to clear the rubble, remove unexploded bombs, etc., before any large-scale reconstruction can even begin?
Well, if there's a will, there is a way. Let me say with honesty, if there is a will on the part of the international community to open all crossings, to make sure that there is an influx of equipment needed to remove the rubble, and also an influx of material that's needed for reconstruction, things will happen in no time. No time meaning maybe 3-4 years. But if things are impeded the way they are by Israel, it will take decades maybe before Gaza is to be revitalized and brought back to life. Sadly, I say so when I have family there and I've lost my loved ones. But I would say it with hope that there will be a world that's going to wake up and believe that Palestine has been delayed far too long, and the resolution of the Arab-Israeli conflict has been put on the back burner for decades on end. Let's hope that it is resolved so that we see an open lines, open veins as they were, for blood to flow in and for hope to flow in as well for Palestinians to see a different reality and a different future.
Dr. Sabri Saidam, thank you for joining us from Ramallah today. We appreciate your analysis and perspective on this matter today.